The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with Access Credit Union and the Donal O'Driscoll Student Bursary. The Donal O'Driscoll Student Bursary has been established to honour the career and achievements of Access Credit Union's late CEO, Donal O'Driscoll. Throughout his long term as CEO, Donal championed the credit union ethos of supporting and empowering members, particularly in the sphere of education. In recognition of this, the Donal O'Driscoll Bursary will provide financial support to one individual embarking on third-level education or commencing an apprenticeship in 2022. The recipient of the bursary will be awarded €5,000 to help with costs. To apply for the bursary, visit www.accesscu.ie/bursary.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose a credit union, choose local, choose community. The knockout stages of the Cork County Football Championships get underway this weekend and we're looking ahead to all of the big games involving West Cork sides on this week's podcast. Kieran's going to take us through each game, including the huge Premier Senior quarter-final ties featuring Castlehaven, Carbery Rangers and Carbery. We're also going to hear from Keith White of Dohenys ahead of their mouth-watering Senior A quarter-final meeting with O'Donovan Rossa. Keith has been chatting to our own Matthew Hurley. Later on the podcast, we'll be joined by Olympic rowing legend Martin Cross. Cross, who won gold at the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, caught up with Kieran ahead of the World Rowing Championships, which get underway in the Czech Republic this weekend and will feature 5 Skibbereen rowers, including Olympic champions Fintan McCarthy and Paul O'Donovan. But we're going to start this week, as we often do, with a look at the club scene. We'll preview the county championship fixtures this weekend in a moment, but we have to briefly touch on the Carbery Junior A Football Championship, which saw defending champions Tadhg Macora knocked out last night by Aberdeen Rangers. Aberdeen will now meet St. James's in the final. And Kieran, not many of us saw this one coming.
You can chalk that one down. This is what you call a novel final. We've two, I suppose, one-time winners each. Aberdeen won it once back in 1994. St. James's won it for the first time back in 2019. And I don't think many people would have predicted St. James's v Aberdeen Rangers final. But the thing is, both teams are here on merit, and they both took out highly fancied opponents in their semi-finals. A quick look at last weekend. St. James's beat a very good St. Mary's team that had lost last year's final. And there was that bit of South Kerry gold that came up trumps for St. James's. Their player manager, Alan O'Shea. I suppose it's the beauty of being a player manager. You can decide when to spring yourself from the bench, but Alan timed it to perfection and he got the late winning goal as St. James's came through that. It was 2-11 to 1-11, but it was an epic game, a really, really good game of football. And then on Tuesday night, Jack, it was the turn of Aberdeen Rangers to produce another shock in this Carbery Junior A Football Championship. They took out reigning champions Tadhg Macora, but what drama it was in Dunmanway. An incredible game. 8 minutes into injury time, Brian O'Driscoll had a penalty for Cora to level the game. But young Aberdeen goalkeeper Luke McCarthy became the hero. Cool Hand Luke is the headline in Thursday's Southern Star. A nod to a very famous Western from many years ago. But young Luke McCarthy kept his cool to save Brian O'Driscoll's penalty and send Aberdeen Rangers through to the final. And this is just a great story because Aberdeen Rangers have been on the go in both hurling and football in recent weeks. And as a dual club, it is tough going because they're picking from the small pick of players game after game after game. And just last Saturday, Carbery Rangers lost to Russell Rovers in the Premier Junior Hurling quarter-final. And 3 days later, almost that same bunch of players, they went to the well again, and they found enough to beat Tadhg McCorrigg. And not only did they beat Tadhg McCorrigg, but they deserved to beat them. So now we've a really interesting final coming up, Carbery Rangers against St. James's. That's on Sunday, September 25th in Ahiol at 3:30 p.m. And no doubt around Timoleague and Ardfield, the bunting will start to go out and the excitement, because the prize, there's actually 3 prizes on offer, Jack. The winner will be the Carbery Junior A Football Champions, which is a great accolade on its own. The winner will also go forward into the Cork Junior A Football Championship, and they'll take on the Muskerry champions Kilmurray in the middle of October. But the champions will also earn their place in the new Cork Premier Junior Football Championship in 2023. So this is effectively, it's a Carbery final, but it's also you could say it's like a county promotion final as well, because either St. James's or Carbery Rangers will go up a level to the County Premier Junior Championship next year. So there's an awful lot on offer, and it's going to be, judging what we've seen in the last couple of games, it's going to be another cracker.
Yeah, well, congratulations to both Agardeen and St. James's, and we'll also be previewing that final in depth in the coming weeks, both in the Southern Star and on the Star Sport podcast. So keep your ears open for that one. But we're going to switch our attentions now, because it's starting to get interesting in the County Football Championship, with knockout ties involving multiple West Cork sides scheduled across this weekend. And Kieran, we might as well start with the Premier Senior Football Championship, because there's 3 teams involved in quarterfinals and 1 involved in a relegation playoff. That's Newcestown. They take on Éire Óg on Saturday. Carbery Rangers take on Nemo Rangers in the county quarter-final. Castlehaven take on Mallow. Both those games are in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the Carbery divisional side will take on Ballincollig. That game's also in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So Kieran, maybe take us through each of the quarter-finals and what people should be looking out for this weekend. Like, obviously, Castlehaven will probably fancy their chances of progressing. Carbery, the divisional side as well, but it's going to be a little more difficult for Carbery Rangers.
Yeah, I think so. But first, a quick look at that relegation playoff. That is this Saturday in Brinny at 4 p.m. That's Newcestown against Éire Óg. And Newcestown have found it going a bit tough this year, and I think injuries have really hit them. They're down a couple of more bodies for this game against Éire Óg. Colm Deneen, I think, broke his ankle in the recent game against Castlehaven, and they're just down bodies like David Buckley and so on. So they've a big game here, a big game against an Éire Óg team that's only in its second year up at the Premier Senior grade. So the loser of this game will go back to the Senior A Football Championship for next year. So that's a huge game for Newcestown, and it's almost something we touched on last week as well, Jack, that it's just hard going for dual clubs in the way the championships are set up presently, especially the dual clubs that are trying and want to be successful, because you're just on the go week after week after week. And if you pick up injuries and you're picking from the same pool of players, it's going to catch you at some point. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in Brinny on Saturday. So that's Newcestown against Éire Óg. But then turning to the quarterfinals, like you're dead right. There's 3 West Cork teams involved, and we look at Nemo Rangers against Carbery Rangers in Páirc Uí Chaoimh first. That's 5 p.m. on Saturday evening. Nemo Rangers are one of the favourites for the county title. They're probably the favourites in a lot of people's eyes, because they're really going well this year. They topped the group of death. They beat Castlehaven. They beat Clonakilty. They beat Newcestown. They're in a rich vein of form. Their players are going well, but they're up against a Carbery Rangers team that is through to the knockout stages for the first time in a couple of years. And it's a Carbery Rangers team, and they probably won't like me for saying it, but they're in bonus territory in this game, you could say, because the expectation will be that Nemo are going to win this game. Nemo are favourites to win this game. This Carbery Rangers team is still finding its feet. They have a lot of young fellas coming through, and young fellas who are finding their feet, the likes of Jack Van, Keenan Scannell, Peter O'Rourke. I suppose kind of knitted in with the older established players like Thomas O'Rourke, John O'Rourke, who did miss the last game through injury. You've Brian Shanahan there, you've James Fitzpatrick, you've John Hayes on the bench, you've Paul Shanahan in goal, Alan Jennings is still there. So there's a lovely mix of experience and youth in that Carbery Rangers team. But the expectation, like I said, is for Nemo to advance from this. But it's just a good chance for Carbery Rangers, like in their previous game against St. Finbarrs, to see how they measure up against one of the real big boys in Cork club football. It's not saying that Ross can't pull off a shock, because they have the players to do it, but they need a lot of things to go right up in Parky Queeve on Saturday evening. So I would be thinking that Nemo will be too strong for Ross in this one. And that leads us then into the second of that doubleheader, Castlehaven against Mallow. And I think we'll have a West Cork winner here. I think Castlehaven will have too much for a Mallow team that's just up out of the senior A ranks. And it's so well to top their group. And we have an interview with Michael Hurley in Thursday's Southern Star, and he makes the point that any team that tops their group in the Premier Senior Football Championship is a good team. And Mallow certainly are. Ballincollig, Douglas and Valleys were in their group, but Mallow came out on top. So I think Castlehaven are forewarned here that they won't take Mallow lightly. And it's a Castlehaven team that finished second in that group with Nemo. And they played well. They played okay. But I think they know that there's more to come from them as well. When you look at the likes of Brian Hurley, Michael Hurley, Mark Collins, Damien Cahalan, Conor Cahalan, Jack Cahalan, all these players, you can see the quality in the Castlehaven team right now. But what could, in a way, work against Castlehaven is the fact that St. Finbarrs are going well in the hurling. They're through to the semi-finals, and the Cahalan brothers are in with playing hurling as well. So they're having to switch between football, hurling. So Castlehaven aren't getting their full team all the time for training and preparation. But saying that, I still think that Castlehaven will have too much for Mallow. And if that is the case, we'll have a Castlehaven against St. Finbarrs county semi-final, which will be incredible. The last 2 years, these teams have met at this stage, and we have a penalty shootouts, drama, epics, just classic games. So I think if we get that again, Jack, nobody will be complaining. And now, as I take a deep breath, on to Sunday, Carbery against Ballincollig, Parky Queeve, 5 o'clock. It's another Premier Senior Football quarterfinal. The Carbery team, and we've covered it quite well in the last couple of months, is on a high right now. They won 5 games in a row to get through to the knockout stages for the first time in a long time. Their last game was against Duhallow in the Division Colleges final a couple of weeks back. So since then, the players have gone back to their clubs. So that's how it's hard for a division in terms of their preparation for a big game like this. Whereas Ballincollig can train together each week. That they're a club team. They know each other inside out. The Carbery preparations won't be what Tim Buckley would have hoped they would have been. But they're still, it's just the cards that the Carbery team have been dealt. And they're also dealt a bit of a blow the weekend. Dylan Scannell, who's been such a rock in that Carbery full back line, he went out injured in St. Mary's, lost to St. James's, and by all accounts, Dylan is out of Sunday night's quarterfinal, which is a loss for him, because he was really looking forward to this game and showing what he can do. But still, despite that, and despite the obstacles that divisional teams have, I do have a sneaky feeling that Carbery will get through this game. They're just a team, after those 5 wins, they're building up a camaraderie and understanding. They're starting to play better. There's a good bond in that team, and this is a chance for them to get through to county semi-final. So I have a feeling that the Carbery will do it, and we'll have a Carbery Nemo semi-final on one side, and we'll have Haven and the Bars on the other side.
Lovely stuff, Kieran. Well, that's the Premier Senior Football Championship. There's also plenty of West Cork interest in the Senior A Championship, and we're going to dive into the Dohenys, O'Donovan Rossa big derby in a moment. But Kieran, Bandon have also found themselves, like Newcestown, in relegation trouble, and they're taking on Newmarket in Coachford on Saturday at 4 p.m. So how do you fancy Bandon's chances of retaining their Senior A status?
Hopefully, fingers crossed that they can, Jack. Like, it's almost like we said with Newcestown a couple of minutes ago, a dual club finding themselves in a relegation fight, and it's been the same story, kind of similar between Bandon and Newcestown. The same pick of players, they picked up injuries. Important players have missed big games. Like Barry Collins has been injured for Bandon, and Mark Sugru's back now, which is a big plus for them. It's a big game because Bandon want to keep their Senior A status. They're a big town football team. They have the players, and just hopefully that they'll have enough to get past Newmarket on that Saturday. Coachford at 4 p.m. So, like I said, big game for Bandon. And we have an interview with Colin Mahern, the Bandon football manager, in Thursday's Southern Star. And he's making the point that they need to knit together a proper 60-minute performance. They're just starting games too slow. They're allowing teams to build up an advantage. And while they can put in a good second half, they're almost playing catch-up at that stage. So they really need to start the game well against Newmarket and Coachford on Saturday, get a foothold in the game and take it from there. So touch wood, hopefully we'll have Bandon keeping their Senior A status. And whatever happens in the other game, O'Donovan Rossa and Dohenys in Bantry on Sunday, Jack, we're going to have a West Cork team in the County Senior A Football Championship semi-final. And the winner of this team will be playing St. Michael's. And who doesn't love a West Cork derby? And this is a big one. This is two big town teams. O'Donovan Rossa from Skibbereen up against Dohenys from Dunmanway. There's not too much between these teams in terms of geography. 20 minute drive, I'd say, between them. They're two teams will have their eyes on being involved in the business end of this competition. If you go back 2 seasons ago, O'Donovan Rossa got to the semi-finals. Go back to last year, Dohenys got to the semi-finals and they lost to St. Michael's up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and were unlucky to do so. So both will know that if they can get past this game, and that will be getting a really good game under their belt before getting the semi-final, that they have a right good chance of going deep into the Senior A Football Championship. It's just a really interesting game because you have just two really good teams here. Like O'Donovan Rossa can call on the likes of Donal O'Connell, they've Kevin Davis, they've Elliot Connolly, Dylan Horahan. There's some really good players all over the park. The likes of the experienced Paddy Crowley in defence, Ryan Price as a goalkeeper. I'd say he's there the last decade or so. Then Dohenys, on the other hand, you've really good forwards like Fionn Hurley in with the Cork team. Mark Buckley was in with the Cork senior footballers earlier in the year. You've Keith White, who we're going to hear from quite soon. Mark Quinn is back in this year. They have a really good team there as well, and Declan Dwyer's doing a super job. So it's going to be an absolute battle in Bantry at 2:00 this Sunday. And ahead of this game, Matthew Hurley caught up with Keith White to talk about his very, very busy schedule as he juggles football, soccer and coaching, but also to get his thoughts on the big game in West Cork this weekend.
So Dohenys have a big game this Sunday against O'Donovan Rossa, West Cork derby in the Senior A Football Championship quarterfinal. What a huge game this is for both sides. And joining me on the podcast here is Dohenys player Keith White, just to talk about their build up towards the big game on Sunday in Bantry at 2:00. It should be a huge game in store. I suppose, first of all, Keith, how's training been over the last few weeks? We're talking a bit off air about it, but you're settling in well with going into the quarterfinal this Sunday.
Yeah, training's going very well, Matthew, in fairness. Training a lot now, like we have been all year, so nothing's really changed, to be honest. So we've been training 3 times a week since January, February, so training's been very, very good. We set the goals at the start of the year to go into knockout championship, and here we are. So the mood is very good. Training's going very, very well. We've a very good, strong panel there of 23, 24 lads going for the 15 spots in the senior team. So training is very intense. And as well as that, then the Junior B footballers on the West Cork final in as well. So the mood is very good all over the club and everything. So it's very, the intensity is very good and everything. So thank God.
I suppose it is very good mood. You see, as your Junior B team are the football final there, you're in the quarterfinals. You didn't actually lose a game at the group stage either. So everything's going well for Dohenys at the moment. And do you feel that way on the pitch that things are kind of going your way at the moment?
Yeah, to be fair, well, you could look at it that way, but then we got the first game against Ballingarry, they scored a last second point equaliser, and it was the same thing against Kishgame. So we kind of felt hard done by then. If you ask anybody who plays sport and you can see the last minute score, it kind of feels like you've lost the game. But we were still delighted with the 2 draws to get out of the group. People kind of seem to forget that too. We haven't actually lost a championship game here this year. Things have been going very well for us. We on another day that score against Ballingarry might have went over, against Kishgame might be over, and we could have been on 6 points topping our group. It could be a totally different story. But look, that's sport, that's championship football, in fairness. So things have been going very well for us, thank God. And here we are now. We set targets at the start of the year to get out of our group, go into championship football, and that's exactly where we are now. We're in a county quarter final coming up against O'Donovan Rossa. So we're delighted, and we've a heads down focus now again.
I was actually talking to your manager, Declan Dwyer, a few weeks back, and he was saying actually before the Bandon game, we were doing a preview on that, and he was telling me about how tough it is at the Senior A Championship. He believed that any of the 12 teams could have won it. And even after you beat Bandon, drawing against Kishkame and Ballingeary, as you mentioned already, would you kind of agree with that point, that all the teams in the championship are evenly matched?
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, the Senior A Championship has been very, very well contested the last 2 or 3 years. Like any of the teams could have won it any of the years. It's a very, very tough grade to play. And I played the likes of Nemo, they're now Premier Senior when I was first playing Senior. Like, and to be honest, the teams we're playing now are just as tough. It's very, very big intensity. Like, so yeah, any teams could win it. Look, there's new teams out in the county quarterfinal now this year with Clyde there as well. Like, so look, I know Michael's are tipped to win it, raging favourites for, like, but I know they know as well that anything could happen in championship football. There's a lot of quality teams left, and we're all going for the same thing. Like, so yeah, I agree with him. To be fair, any team could win it, and it's championship football. Anything could happen. You know, anything, just all about luck in the day as well. If luck goes your way, then you know you might win that game. If not, then you mightn't. So it is a very tough. It's very, very good competition to play, and it's very, very hard to win it. So yeah, we're all looking forward to it now.
And look at your team as well. You have 2 inter-county stars, obviously Mark Buckley and Fionn Hurley, both excellent scores in this championship. Mark has achieved, I think it's won 7 in the championship so far. He's been absolutely outstanding. Fionn has been pretty good as well. Is it kind of a positive to have those 2 guys, once they're firing in a tight game, like it probably will be against O'Donovan Rossa at the weekend, to have them firing, and whenever they get the chance, they score?
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, everyone knows that every kind of team has their key marksmen, and Mark and Fionn are absolutely excellent. They are our key men, in fairness. They're our go-to men, and you know, when backs against the wall there, we look for them, and they always pull us up out of the mud, in fairness to them. So they're unbelievable, 2 of them unbelievable footballers, and having 2 good seasons so far, and they, I no doubt about, they'll keep it going as well. So even with training as well, they bring some serious intensity to trainings, like, and to match day, you know, they get us all going around them. And I'm in the far line too with them, like, so I can see they get me going with them, you know, they bring us along with them as well the whole time. Like, they're absolutely excellent. Like, and thank God I'm on the same team as them, to be honest. I wouldn't want to be marking them or anything, like, so they are excellent, like, and they do get us out of a lot of trouble. They have been doing for years, like, so then they're firing very well. So things are looking good for them as well. So, but we're all, to be fair, like the lads there at our back line as well, deserve huge credit. We've conceded, if you look at our games, we've conceded actually very little. We're defending unbelievably well as well. So they deserve some huge credit as well. Our back line, our midfielders, like, they are one for them. We won't get the ball up front, and we won't be able to score and probably get the headlines in after that. So they are excellent there as well. And so if it wasn't for them, Mark and Fionn will tell you the same thing, then no, we'd be getting no ball and we won't be doing half as well. So they are excellent to have in our team, though. 2 very, very good key men to have.
I was actually looking at your stats before the chat as well, and you've averaged, I think, 15 points, and then defensively you only conceded an average of 1-9. That's pretty damn impressive. And you look at the manager, Declan Dwyer, of the backroom team there, they've done a Trojan of work, I'd imagine, in training sessions and whatnot.
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, we have, to be fair, the lads took us over there last year, like, they've been drilling in a certain way that they wanted to play, you know. To be fair, Declan and Robbie Ahern, Dan Donovan, there's Fimber Collins, Noel Donovan, Paul Dean have all set us up really well, like, and to be fair, we're firing well up front, but I think the huge credit has to go to the backs, like, as you said there, as an average of 1-9 or whatever it is. It's very, very good going for a Senior A football championship, because we all know how competitive and how tough it is. So we are delighted with things like that. All comes down to training. Like, you know, we set standards in training. Training's very good. It's very intense. So yeah, to be fair, the lads have set us up very well in that regard too.
When you look at the opposition, I know managers and players won't want to look at the opposition too much, especially managers all over the county, really. They want to focus on their own team. But when you look at Skib, they're kind of scored freely in this championship. Would that be a challenge in itself to try to stop their marksmen, the likes of Eddie Connolly and Dodo Condit and all them players, to stop them scoring? And looking at the stats so far, you seem to be up for that challenge.
Yeah, of course, it's going to be a good battle on that, on the opposite side of the pitch to me, as you could say. Like, it is, we know Skib from last year. We played them on Drum League last year. It was a very, very good tense game. So I'm expecting the exact same again this year, and we are going to have a challenge to stop them as well. But we're just concentrating ourselves, to be honest. Like, we're going in there knowing the strengths and qualities that we possess, like, and that's what we're going to bring to the game. And whatever will happen on the day will happen. Like, but we're quietly confident in ourselves in that regard. But it is going to be a very tough game because Skip have that quality up front as well, and they are strong at the back too.
Bit about yourself, as you're the fella being interviewed here, but I heard from previous people, I think Declan mentioned as well, and you mentioned it off air, that you're in the backroom team for the junior ladies footballers. Like, what's that role like, being in the backroom team there and playing at a high level for Dohenys as well? Would it be tiring, or do you love it?
As I said to you off air there, Matthew, I might as well just move into our local Galtish, to be honest. I'm up there so much. Like, to be fair, I've been involved with the Dohenys junior ladies now with about 4 or 5 years, nearly 6 years, to be honest, I'd say. So I'm well used to them and they're well used to me now, and we've had good success in fairness, and now we're on the hunt for a junior A football championship this year. But it's a very tough group that they're in too, like, so it is tough to balance both. But the lads that are involved now, Tony White, Darren Kelly and John DeLay, they know that I can't turn up all the time, you know, that I'm busy myself as well with senior football, like, so. But I am there 90% of the time, in fairness. But it is tough. But I'm kind of after adapting to it now the last couple of years and getting used to it, like, so. And I love it, to be honest. I wouldn't really change it for anything. But so yeah, I'm concentrating on my own football and then with them as well. So it's all go at the moment now.
And in order to add to your schedule as well, I hear you're a very good soccer player at the moment as well. So playing soccer, coaching J and playing J at a high level, when does it stop?
Yeah, it's thank God for the summer months. I know soccer kind of takes a break, so that's fine for a while. Like, but get back into playing soccer now once football is over again, I suppose. So it never really stops, to be honest. Once football finishes, back in playing soccer, and then football will be back again in the new year, like, and that's when soccer kind of gets heavy scheduled in and that, like, so it doesn't really stop. But to be honest, I don't know what to do without it all. So I'm just kind of so used to now, just go with the flow, like, so it's all good, like.
And with soccer and J, is there a real definitive difference between the sports, or are they very much the same?
Look, dude, there is a lot of similarities in them. Like, I grew up, to be honest, when I was 13 or 14, it was always up to, like, till I was 18. Soccer is my number one. I was playing soccer in Cork and stuff. Then since 18, 19 on, football has been coming first for me, like, so. But I would say one thing, that the intensity and the level of football is a lot different than playing soccer. Like, you know, it is, you can't really hide in a game of football, like, so it's a lot different that way, all right, like. But I have a lot of the skills I have in football have come from soccer as well, like, you know, so there is a lot of similarities in that regard too. But as I said, I love the both of them, and I won't stop with anything anyway.
And a final question just about Dohenys in general. Like, I know he won't be wanting to look too far ahead or to the Skip game, but if he beat them at the weekend, go into a semi-final, possibly a final then, and possibly even win the Premier, the Senior A Championship, get promotion to the Premier Senior. And for a club like Dohenys, a historic club, you know, the great Sam Maguire comes from there, what would it be for the club to get promoted to the top grade in Cork football?
You said it all there, really, Matthew. It would mean everything to everyone, like, especially just the people at the Manual. Like, if you ever go to a Dohenys game, we have an absolute unbelievable crowd there roaring us on, like, and it just shows from ourselves, the mentors, the club, and the people at the Manual how much it means to them all, because they all come out in fierce numbers every week, like, week in, week out. You know, at our league games, at our championship games, there's always a big crowd following us, like, so. We just want, you know, it shows how much that they want it as well, like, you know. And then within the club, there's people within that club that has been there for years, haven't seen any senior success for Dohenys, like, so. And Dohenys do belong in the top grade of senior football, like, and that's what we're going to try and do, and get on back to that, like. And we've been training hard now ourselves. You know, the last year we had a very good run, and we want to go one step further now this year, hopefully, like, so. Within the management as well, they've put in some serious work with us. So we want to do it for ourselves, for the management, for the club, and for the people of the Manual as well, you know. So, but as you said as well, Matthew, one step at a time, like, we've always been saying that through all of our games, like, starting with Ballingeary, you know, we've been preparing for Ballingeary, then it was Bandon, then Kish game, and now it's O'Donovan Rossa. So it's one game at a time, and that's the way we're looking at it. We're looking at O'Donovan Rossa now. That's our next task. So that's the next one, next big game for us now. We'll take it game by game, step by step. So, and then hopefully we can go on one better from last year, and hopefully into a county final this year.
That quarterfinal is on Sunday, the 18th of September, 2:00 in Bantry. Should be a very interesting game. Very good West Cork derby to look forward to there. Thank you, Keith, for coming on to the podcast today. Wish you the best of luck at the weekend and later on down the season, playing soccer as well. I'm sure you'd have a hectic schedule there too.
Yeah, but no, thanks very much, Matthew.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with Access Credit Union and the Donal O'Driscoll Student Bursary. The Donal O'Driscoll Student Bursary has been established to honour the career and achievements of Access Credit Union's late CEO, Donal O'Driscoll. Throughout his long term as CEO, Donal championed the credit union ethos of supporting and empowering members, particularly in the sphere of education. In recognition of this, the Donal O'Driscoll Bursary will provide financial support to one individual embarking on third-level education or commencing an apprenticeship in 2022. The recipient of the bursary will be awarded €5,000 to help with costs. To apply for the bursary, visit www.accesscu.ie/bursary.
The World Rowing Championships get underway in the Czech Republic this weekend, and there will be 5 Skibbereen rowers involved with the Irish team, including Olympic gold medalists Fintan, McCarthy and Paul O'Donovan. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from 1984 Olympic rowing gold medalist Martin Cross, who's been speaking to Kieran. But Kieran, before we hear from Martin, I want to ask you about your latest last word column for the Southern Star, in which you've been arguing once again the case for Paul O'Donovan to be respected or claimed as Ireland's greatest ever sports person. And I've seen a big, mostly positive reaction to your column online, and I know our guest coming up, Martin Cross, probably would agree with you too. So is there anything Paul needs to do to solidify his greatness in your eyes, or he's already there, isn't he?
I think he's already there in terms of what he's won in rowing, and almost just the effect that he has had on rowing in these last 6-7 years. Like he really has been the trailblazer for Irish rowing. I know we've talked about it before, but that medal in 2016 he won with Gary, that broke the glass ceiling for Irish rowing. It raised standards, it raised expectations. It was Ireland's first ever Olympic rowing medal. And since then, it's just no coincidence that Irish rowing is in a really golden period right now. And we saw at last year's Tokyo Olympics, the fact that Fintan and Paul won an Olympic gold, but also that the Irish women's 4 won an Olympic bronze medal as well. That's a really important moment in Irish rowing, the first Irish women to win an Olympic medal. And it can all be traced back, I think, to that 2016 silver that Paul and Gary won, because they showed, much like white men can't jump was proved to be wrong, it showed too that Irish rowers can win Olympic medals. So I actually asked Martin Cross about this in our upcoming conversation about where he thinks that Paul O'Donovan ranks in terms of world rowing, because I suppose as a Southern Star, we're beating that drum quite loudly because Paul is one of our own. He's from Lachine. It's only out the road from our headquarters of the Southern Star in Skib. And like I said, he's a West Cork man on a world stage at the best at what he does. But to hear it from someone like Martin Cross, who is an Olympic medalist, he knows rowing inside out. Like Martin Cross will commentate on every race at the upcoming World Rowing Championships for World Rowing. So he's a man who knows the sport inside out. He knows who's good. He knows who's not good. And you'll hear from him quite soon how he places Paul O'Donovan right at the top, along with the Sinkovich brothers. And he makes the claim, or makes the point, Martin does, that if Paul wins world gold again and wins world gold next year and wins Olympic gold in 2024, that Paul will be the greatest rower, maybe of even, up there as one of the best ever, or the best ever. I know you've the likes of Steve Redgrave, who had 5 Olympic medals. We just have to look at the effect that Paul O'Donovan has had on rowing on and off the water. So himself and Fintan McCarthy will race in the Irish men's lightweight double in Richichi, and that's in the Czech Republic, and that kicks off on the World Championships this Sunday. Is it the 18th, and they run for a week until the 25th of September. So there's 7-8 days of top class rowing action to come, and Paul and Fintan will be favourites to take gold and defend their world title. It's hard to see who will stop them, but sport is sport, so you just don't know what would happen. But it would be a huge shock if Paul and Fintan weren't crowned world champions, or if they don't defend their world crown. So that's one to look forward to. And of the other Skibbereen rowers, exciting to see Emily Hegarty from Athlone is back in the Irish women's 4. Earlier this season, Emily and Fiona Murta, they were in the women's pair at World Rowing Cup 2 and the European Rowing Championships. But the four that won bronze at last year's Olympics have been reunited. They put back in the boat together for this World Championship. So we're excited to see what they can do. So that's Emer Lam, Fiona Murta, Afric Kyo, and Emily Hegarty. And then in the Irish women's lightweight double, Eva Casey is back in the boat with Megs Crimmin. And we have an interview with Eva Casey in this Thursday's Southern Star where she talks us through her disrupted season to date. She had college exams in May. She got COVID then after COVID, a month later, she got a chest infection. So that just put her on the back foot this season. And while that was going on, Lydia Heafy from Lep was with Megs Crimmin in the Irish women's lightweight double. And they did really, really well. They won a medal at World Cup 2. They finished fourth at the Europeans, but the boat was retrialled after the Europeans, and Eva got back in the boat. So at the World Championships now, we have Eva Casey and Megs Crimmin in the double, and we have Lydia Heafy in the Irish women's lightweight single. And Lydia will be looking to put in a good performance there to put the heat back on Megs and Eva. So there's just great competition going on there in that Irish women's lightweight double. So lots to look forward to. But when I caught up with Martin Cross, our talk was primarily and all about Paul and Fintan. Because, Jack, what we're talking about is two of the best rowers in the world right now. And they're two West Cork men. They're two Skibbereen rowers. They're two men from the same parish in Affadown who are just a class above every other boat in the men's lightweight double world as a world of rowing right now. So I started off by asking Martin, will there be a shock in Machiche? Will we see someone come up and stun and surprise Paul and Fintan? And I think we all know what the answer was. Since we had you on last, Martin, Paul and Fintan have won Olympic gold. They were crowned World Rowing Men's Crew of the Year. They reunited to win European gold last month and extend their winning run. And they just seem to be getting better and better and better. The body of evidence is pretty compelling right now. But is this what we've come to expect from the Skibbereen Dream Team, that together Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy win rowing races and they win gold?
Yeah, I think I mean when I reflect on what they've done, I go to that amazing race that they won Olympic gold in, and I think that was sensational because they were matched against a phenomenal crew from Germany, and Jason Osborne, the stroke man of that crew, I mean, he's made a seamless transition into professional cycling for a professional team. The Alpecin Desuna Quick Step, and he was such an amazing athlete, both on the bike and on the water, and they were just level like this, neck and neck, and then Paul and Fintan just sort of went ahead in the final bit, and really that was a race worthy of the title of winning an Olympic gold medal. There is nobody of that standard to race Paul and Fintan now. Mm-hmm. There is nobody of Jason Osborne's standards. All of the doubles that will be in the World Championships that are coming up next week are doubles that Paul and Fintan have beaten, and they can't compete in the second half of the course with the kind of pace that Paul and Fintan have got. Mm-hmm. We saw in the European Championships the way that the Irish double just blasted through in the third and the fourth 500 meters and just moved out from the field, moved out from a great field. The Italians are really, really strong double. They scull beautifully together. This new Swiss combination of Schaubeli and Ireland, a great new double, but they can't compete over the second half of the course. And I think even the crews coming in from places like New Zealand and Australia just don't have the endurance that the Irish do over that second 1,000 meters. So when you take a look down at the entries, you kind of go, well, there's only one crew that's going to win gold here, and that is Fintan and Paul.
I think what's remarkable about the Europeans, Martin, is the fact that Paul and Fintan, I think, were together almost a handful of times this year alone before they came back in the boat for the Europeans. They were both in the singles, and then Paul was in work placement in Australia for a small bit, but they were reunited in the double for the Europeans, and they won gold, and they won up, I think, almost 4 seconds from that Italian crew. And we'd Fintan on the podcast after that, and he said he was even kind of surprised by their winning margin. It was one of their biggest winning margins. So when you consider where they are now, having not been together in the boat that much, and they're still winning big gold medals by clear water at this stage, is there any glimmer of hope for any of the other crews out there?
There's always a glimmer of hope. I mean, things happen in rowing. At the Olympics in Tokyo, one of the doubles that was racing Paul and Fintan actually flipped over and capsized. A number of the crews, if the conditions are rough, you can catch your blades on the water. It's called catching a crab, and that slows the boat down. But these are kind of outside things that the opposition will be looking, before the Irish. In terms of if it's really decent conditions, nice flat conditions, there isn't anybody that can compete in the second half. Look, I saw Paul O'Donovan race in the single scull at Lucerne on the Rossa. And, what he did there to win that race was phenomenal. I mean, the stroke rating per minute is quite important. But he was rating something like 50 strokes a minute. And I thought, that's crazy. How can this guy that has obviously been doing his medical training, how can he still have the base endurance to go that hard at the end of a race? And he did. And then when you consider that that Fintan, when he raced Paul, actually beat Paul, you see Fintan is improving. Fintan has improved from the Olympics up in 2021 till now. He's getting better. I think he was getting better from when the Olympics were postponed to 2021. I think he's now a better athlete in 2022 than he was in 2021. So you put that together and you've got a very formidable package.
That's actually a great point, Martin, because we talk so much about Paul, and we're going to talk about him again quite soon. But the improvement of Fintan over the last couple of years has been so noticeable as well. Like you mentioned there, at the Irish Rowing Championships during the summer, Fintan took home two single scull titles, and he actually beat Paul in one of the races, which was I think a very big moment for Fintan. But he's really stepped up and he's getting better, and he's really driving this boat on as well. And I think that's very noticeable from the outside too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really noticeable because I think initially, I don't know whether Fintan would have been a bit starry-eyed. I think when he came into the sport initially, obviously, his rowing heroes were Paul and Gary. And I think he's kind of got used to being in the spotlight. Mm-hmm. Also, I think the time that Paul's spending on his medical studies has given Fintan a chance. He was in the single scull in the Poznan World Cup. He didn't win that. He came second, but it was a great race. And it's given him a chance to stand out on his own and to shine. And I think also, there is good competition within the winter for those places in the Irish lightweight men's double scull. And so he's really relished that, and he's increased his physiology. He's got better. His endurance is better. His technique I thought in the single, his technique is looking great. And I think all of those things add in to make this, to enable that double to go as fast as it did in the Europeans.
And obviously then there's Paul O'Donovan. If that Irish double wins gold, as we think it might, Martin, that will be his 5th world gold medal. He has 3 European golds. He's Olympic gold 2 and Olympic silver. We spoke about it before when you were on the podcast last, and you described him as a force of nature, but he's just an incredible athlete. Like, in terms of world rowing, where is Paul right now?
Well, I think Paul is right at the top of world rowing. I would say there are a few athletes to maybe contend for his title. Maybe if I think of male athletes, there are 2 Croatians, the Sinkovic brothers. They won the double sculls gold medal in Rio, so they each had 2 blades. And then they said, right, we're going to change back into a pair, just 1 blade each, and they won the pairs title in Tokyo. That was a remarkable achievement. So those 2 guys are right at the top. Alongside them is Paul. Particularly, I think and in some ways they're quite similar. They're very good in terms of public relations. They have a really good outward facing look. They project, a great image for the sport. And I would put Paul up there with the Croatians as one of the top athletes in world rowing. Whether Paul would be at the apex, I think that we'll have to see. I think, there's the World Championships this year. I think Paul probably needs to make sure he wins the World Championships this year, the World Championships next year, and then the Olympic gold. And then he would be right at the top of the pyramid. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And the reason I say that, Kieran, is because the Croatians, the Sinkovic brothers, are open weight. They don't have to worry about being, as Paul does, weighing in at 71 kilos, watching his diet, watching his nutrition. He's kind of got an added handicap in that sense because he has to weigh in at that level. So that makes his achievement all the more great. I think in terms of personalities in world rowing, I would say Paul O'Donovan is the number one personality in world rowing. He looks very different now, doesn't he, with his long hair. He has such an aggressive style of racing. He has done so well in the double. They are so cohesive and they are so good over the second half. I mean, I remember at the Europeans, the president of World Rowing, Jean-Christophe Rolland, who himself is an Olympic gold medalist, and he's an important guy. He's on the International Olympic Committee. He was there when the athletes came in to get their medals. And what he wanted on his mobile phone a picture of Paul O'Donovan. They were being interviewed, and he wanted to take a picture of Paul. That's because this guy is such an amazing personality. So, the world of rowing is much better because Paul is in it.
And it's a drum I've been beating for a long time in the Southern Star, Martin, just how good Paul is and almost what he's done for rowing on and off the water. Like, he's been a game changer here in Ireland in terms of that 2016 Olympic silver with Gary. That proved Irish rowers can win Olympic medals. And now, obviously, Paul and Fintan won gold, and the Ireland women's 4 won bronze at the Olympics last year. But it's what he's done on the water as well. But it's trying to get people to understand that rowing is a very, very hard sport. And for Paul to do what he's done for the last, 5, 6, 7 years, it's just incredible longevity, but it just shows how talented the man is as well.
Yeah, I think so. And, credit to their coach, Dominic Casey. I think the training program he sets them is fearsome, and they have proved equal to every test that he's thrown at them. And some of the outings, some of the sessions that they've done, I think Fintan, I heard recently talking about a session where they did in Spain. They did 8 times 2,000 meters. 2,000 meters is the distance for the race, and they were being competitive for these 8 times 2,000 meters with another crew. And they measured their lactic acid. That's how much the body produces. And you kind of look for a figure of maybe 9 or 10 in that millimoles in that kind of racing. Well, Fintan, his lactic acid that he was producing was 18 millimoles, which is a phenomenal amount to actually be able to do those 8 times 2,000 meters. It just shows you, that they are equal to the training that Dominic Casey has set them, and brilliantly set up with the technique. And it's a real credit to the whole system and setup around Skibbereen and in the wider Irish rowing community that they've managed to do what they've done, and also to inspire others, like you mentioned, the Irish women's 4, just to come through. And, and I think there are more on the way.
It's been an incredible success story these last couple of years, and obviously the Paris Olympics won't be too far away, and Paul and Fintan Touchwood will be there as well. But just to ask you as well, Martin, I read an interview with Fintan there in the last week or so when he was looking at life after the Paris Olympics and the possibility of himself and Paul stepping up the heavyweight and taking on the big boys. Is that something you could see them doing?
Yeah, there's precedent for that. In the Barcelona Olympics of 1992, there was an Australian double with one of my good friends, Peter Anthony, in it. And they effectively, the two of them were lightweights, and they stepped up to heavyweights, and they won that gold medal in 1992 Olympics. So there is a precedent. I think there's certainly speed to be gained from not having to be on weight. Fintan has to weigh in at 69 kilos. Paul has to weigh in at 71 kilos. So they could go up to 75, 76, even, going 79, 80 kilos. That would give them some extra bulk. If that was in terms of muscle bulk, that would give them some extra pace to allow them to compete. They've got to compete with those two Croatians, the Sinkovic brothers. I mean, so in other words, and that would be, I would pay a lot of money to see that race. I'd pay a lot of money in the 2028 Olympics if lightweight doubles aren't in that and they go heavyweight. I'd pay a lot of money to see the Croatians versus the Irish. Man, that would be some contest.
Have we got it confirmed yet that the lightweight double is gone from the Olympic schedule after Paris? I know there's been a lot of talk about it, but thankfully it is there for Paris. But has it been confirmed yet, Martin? Or is there even a chance maybe that we could have it in the 2028 Olympics?
Yeah, well, we thought that Paris would have coastal rowing instead of lightweight rowing. That was proved not to be the case. It's said it's likely that coastal rowing will replace lightweight rowing in Los Angeles, but that's not been confirmed yet. So if you're taking bets on it, the likelihood is that it's going to be coastal rowing, beach sprints is the format that they call it. So I think probably the likelihood is that if Paul and Fintan want to carry on, they will have to go open weight, and that will be a great challenge for them. I'm sure they'll appreciate that challenge.
And before they can even think about that, it's about the Worlds in the Czech Republic next week. And my final question for you is the fact that these two lads together have won every race in their last 5 international regattas. They've won gold in each of those 5 regattas. Is there only going to be one result if everything sticks to form in the Czech Republic?
Yeah, I think, there are 2 or 3 categories of nailed on favourites, and one of the strongest is the lightweight men's double sculls. In terms of predictions, I do predictions with a group of, really knowledgeable former international rowers and coaches. There's about 7 or 8 of us, and we do our predictions for who's going to win the gold medal. I can guarantee you nobody will have anything different other than Ireland for lightweight men's double scull. They are nailed on, barring very rough conditions, barring an upset, barring an outside agency, which I don't see happening. They will win another World Championship gold medal.
Exciting times for Irish rowing and exciting times for Skibbereen. Thank you so much again, Martin.
Been a pleasure.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with Access Credit Union and the Donal O'Driscoll Student Bursary. The Donal O'Driscoll Student Bursary has been established to honour the career and achievements of Access Credit Union's late CEO, Donal O'Driscoll. Throughout his long term as CEO, Donal championed the credit union ethos of supporting and empowering members, particularly in the sphere of education. In recognition of this, the Donal O'Driscoll Bursary will provide financial support to one individual embarking on third-level education or commencing an apprenticeship in 2022. The recipient of the bursary will be awarded €5,000 to help with costs. To apply for the bursary, visit www.accesscu.ie/bursary.
Okay, Kieran, before we wrap, we're going to preview this Thursday's Southern Star sports section, and 2 West Cork sides that we actually didn't mention in our previous chat about the football championships this weekend are Adrigole, who are in action against Bursary in the Intermediate A football championship, and I'm going to call them a West Cork side as well. Kilnamatra take on Ahada in the Premier Intermediate Football Championship. So before we preview the paper, maybe let's just touch on both those games too, because they're obviously huge games for the clubs involved.
100%. And we have an interview with Adrigole manager Tim O'Sullivan in Thursday Southern Star. I caught up with him earlier this week because this is a huge game. They're taking on Bursary in an Intermediate A quarterfinal that's in Ballingeary this weekend. So Adrigole have done so well. They topped their group that included Kilshannig, Gabriel Rangers, and I think it was Ballydesmond was the other group in that. So Adrigole topped that group, did 5 points out of a possible 6. And they're in, you could say, bonus territory in some sense, because Tim was explaining to me at the start of the year, Adrigol's initial target was, let's avoid the relegation battle. We do not want to get relegated, because 4 teams are relegated from the Intermediate A Football Championship this year to go down into that new Premier Junior Football grade for 2023. So mission accomplished. Adrigol avoided that relegation scrap. But not only that, they're through to the quarterfinals, and since they're here now, they may as well try and go as far as they can, because this competition is for the John Locke Memorial Cup, and John Locke O'Sullivan was an Adrigol man, so it's a competition very close to the hearts of Adrigol. And they're a team that's building. And in Thursday Southern Star, you read the interview with Tim, where he explains the great work from the late Aidan Crimmin, who passed away last year. He did superb work at Adrigol at underage level, and that's starting to bear fruit now. Those younger players are coming through, and Tim tells me there's another good crop of younger players on the way up as well. So that's so important for a small club like Adrigol to have that supply of players coming up to refresh, to re-energise, just to keep the show on the road. So while they've done so well to get there, they're also looking to take a step forward. So they'll have a very tough game against a very good Boherbue team this weekend. But there's nothing to say that Adrigol can't get to a county semi-final. And once you get there, then anything is possible. You also mentioned Killamatra. That's another big game, Premier Intermediate Football quarter-final in Ballincollig on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Killamatra are managed by John Evans. They're one of the favourites for this championship. They found it going a bit tough in the group stage, maybe surprisingly so, but you'd expect them to get past Ahada and into county quarter-final, and they're another team to watch. We should also touch too, another relegation playoff on Saturday with a mid-Cork team sees Neva Bawn take on St. Vincent's. That's in Clodove at 4 p.m. And that's a big game for Neva Bawn. They won't want to slip down a grade, so they'll be hoping that Lady Luck shines on them when they take on Vincent's in Clodove on Saturday.
Okay, Kieran, that's our football roundup or preview finished for the weekend. So let's quickly then preview this week's Southern Star sports section. I know you have previews on all the games involving the West Cork and the Mid Cork sides. What else can readers look forward to?
So yeah, for the fans of St. James's and Carbery Rangers, there's full page reports on both of their Carbery football semi-final wins. So definitely worth picking up Thursday Star for that. We have a full page 2 on the Mid Cork Junior football final, where Kilmurray dethroned Ahina in a great game there. Pádraig Berhanu was the man of the match. So for fans of Kilmurray, go to your shop or e-paper or your phone and read Thursday Southern Star. And also another full page match report is Kilmeen footballers won the Carbery Junior B football final. They were far too strong for Dohenys. So Kilmeen's reward is they're back up to the Junior A football ranks next year. So they're, for fans of Kilmeen, Kilmurray, Argadine and St. James's, you cannot miss Thursday Southern Star. So what else have we in this week's sports section? We have a Q&A with John Hayes. He's the Carbery Rangers footballer who will be in action against Nemo on Saturday. But in the recent group game against St. Finbarrs, that was his 100th football championship game for Carbery Rangers, which is an incredible record, incredible longevity, because his first game was a Carbery Junior A football game against Gabriel Rangers back in 2002. So 21 seasons later, John is still going strong. So it's a very good Q&A where I picked his brains on some of his highlights and lowlights of his years with Carbery Rangers. So that's well worth checking out. In terms of previews for the county football games this weekend, like I said, we have an interview with Adrigol manager Tim O'Sullivan. We've Michael Hurley from Castlehaven. We've Dylan Howrahan from O'Donovan Rossa. We've Newstown manager Tim Buckley. We've Keith White from Dohenys. I caught up with Dylan Scannell of Carbery and St. Mary's before he picked up his injury last weekend, but it's still a really, really good read as Dylan explains why he wants to play for Carbery and why he thinks this Carbery football project is moving forward. And we also have Colin Mahern, the Bandon manager, on their big game. So you can see there's an awful lot there. We also have a roundup of the Cork ladies football grades, which is the West Cork teams are going quite well there at the moment. And there's a huge intermediate semi-final coming up. Castlehaven, the ladies football team on the rise over the last couple of years, will be taking on Ross Carbery, and that's going to be a massive game. So you can get your roundup of the ladies football in Thursday's Southern Star. Quickly as well, we have a good interview with Gavin Coombs, the Skibbereen rugby juggernaut who is making waves with Munster and Ireland. I had a good chat with Gavin as he told me like there's the best is yet to come from Gavin Coombs. And I think that's a frightening opposition for for all the other teams that Munster and Ireland will come up against, because he feels his game moved up a level from being involved in the Ireland tour to New Zealand in the summer. He had 2 superb games against the Maori All Blacks, got 2 80 minutes under his belt, and he just feels with the new coaching ticket in Munster under Graham Rowntree and with the likes of Simon Easterby with Ireland, that he's ready to kick on and really show what he can do. So I think that's really, really exciting, and that's a very good read. Also, we have an interview with Eva Casey of Skibbereen rowing ahead of the World Rowing Championships. And we've also an interesting story about Fintan McCarthy and Paul O'Donovan, because Fintan McCarthy, and this is going back to the very start, in his very first international regatta with Paul O'Donovan, which was a 2019 World Cup in Rotterdam. During that race, Jack, Fintan made a mistake in that race. So what he did, he knocked the speed coach, the stroke coach, out of the water. So that's a monitor where the rowers can keep track of their speed, their stroke rate, their time, and so on. So he knocked it out of the boat during the race. And he just relives that, what happened, because Paul spotted what went on. And during the race, it was actually the final, Paul actually leant out of the water to sweep the stroke coach back in. And Fintan describes it as something out of the Matrix. It was something surreal altogether. But for a long time after, Fintan denied he did anything wrong. He said, it wasn't me. I don't know what happened. The wind or a wave knocked it out. But Fintan has finally opened up. He's put his hands up and said, okay, I did make a mistake that day. But the good news is Fintan learned his lesson. That stroke coach is tied in every race since, and they haven't stopped winning. So that's in Thursday's Southern Star. And we also have Hawley O'Sullivan's inside track column. We've match reports from the weekend. Coursey Rovers are through to hurling semi-final. Argideen Rangers and Bandon they were knocked out of the hurling. So as you can see, Jack, there's a hell of a lot going on. And also we have an interview with Nemo Rangers joint manager Don Hurley, because they're kicking off the defence of their West Cork League Premier Division crown against Skibbereen on Sunday, and I'm almost out of breath at this stage. There's that much in Thursday's Southern Star, so don't be the one to miss out. Just go and pick up the paper.
And if you can't pick up the paper for any reason, you can always subscribe to the Southern Star online. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper and you can subscribe for less than €2 per week. And as we've been telling you about in the most recent episodes of the Star Sport podcast, we've also launched a brand new e-paper app for Android devices. So if you have an Android and you haven't been able to download our e-paper app over the last number of years, now you can. So just go to the Google Play Store, search the Southern Star, and you'll see our wonderful new app there. The app has also been updated on the App Store, so it's much improved and includes over 10 years worth of Southern Star archives for no additional cost. So subscribe for less than €2 per week. Download either the App Store app or the Google Play Store app, and away you go. Read the Southern Star from anywhere in the world, and the Southern Star and the Southern Star Sports section will be available from 6:30 every Thursday morning. So if you're an early riser, just get up, eat your breakfast and read the Southern Star. This week's edition also features a 48-page West Cork farming magazine. So if you work in agriculture or you just have an interest in farming, this is the magazine for you. 48 pages worth of brilliant farming content. And we also have a 12-page special of first day at school photos. So if your child started school in West Cork over the last week or so, there's a chance that they'll be photographed in this week's Southern Star. Both those supplements will also be available in your Southern Star e-paper app, again from 6:30 on Thursday morning. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper. And once again, I'll repeat myself, you can subscribe for less than €2 per week. That's serious value considering the amount of content in this week's paper. The clock's against us, so I'm going to wrap up quickly. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks as well to our producer Dylan Mangan. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.